this morning. Oh, we're golden. We're golden.
I love it.
Yes, we are. Friends, you know what? It's 7 o'clock on a Tuesday. You know what that means. Courtney, it's time for Pastor Pals! Pastor Pals! I even got some of them allergies and songs.
Okay, for season 3, it's a shame that you don't know anybody that writes music. So by the time you get to season 3, it's a shame that you don't know any pastors who write music. Just saying.
It's too bad that I don't know how to write music myself. No one would ever guess that. Friends, Westies, good evening. Good evening this Tuesday evening, this bizarre 1st of June, disgusting outside, cold. What is going on? Y'all promised me better than this. I knew that the wind came sweeping down the plain in Oklahoma. Nobody told me that there was going to be rain that came along with the wind and cold. I am so excited tonight. Friends, this beautiful soul and I have been friends for 15 years. And here's how I know that we've been friends for 15 years. Because my third oldest, Julian, is 15 years old. And my dear friend, the Reverend Courtney Richards, held Julian when Julian was 5 weeks old. That's when we met, didn't we?
Yep, we will always know how long we've been friends as long as we know how old that child is.
And that's questionable. Like, there's a joke in our house that I round the boys' ages up.
Right.
It's kind of ridiculous.
Well,
it's kind of ridiculous. So Courtney and I met 15 years ago, as we said, in Portland, Oregon. We were both participating in the National Council of Churches Young Adult Office.
Young Adult Ministry Team, I think.
Young Adult Ministry Team, come to the feast conference. It was fantastic. Courtney was the registrar. She kindly brought me coffee every day. That's one of the things that I remember now. I'm like, what? That's so weird. That was
not in the job description. It's all other duties as assigned.
And then we sat on a balcony and drank bourbon one night, and that's where we really became friends. Why shush? We're not Southern Baptists. We can talk about this. Courtney, you've been in this gig for a while. You've been faithfully serving Christ Church for quite a while. Being at Harvard Avenue Christian Church, you are the connections pastor there. And you've been there how long?
It'll be 9 years this fall.
Holy cow, seriously?
Yeah.
Wow. I remember sitting on my couch back in Liberty, Missouri, Courtney texting saying, I think I've got an opportunity, and furiously with the thumbs all night. Right. Before that, you were in Indy. You were at Geist Christian Church in Indy.
For 16 years.
My heavens. You know a thing or two, because you've seen a thing or two.
I stayed at the Holiday Inn. So
you are Courtney. Bum, ba-dum, bum, 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 bum. How did you get into this gig? How did you do this whole pastor thing? How did that happen for you?
The somewhat short version of the story, born and raised in the Disciples Church. My parents were both leaders, my mother behind the scenes, my dad in front of the scenes. So I always say every time the doors are open, we were there. So I was a church kid from the jump. And when I went to college, knew that I wanted to do something that involved people, pursued a degree in psychology for a couple of different reasons, out of some family connection with a cousin who's a psychologist and some interest from some high school classes. But as I was a junior in high school, my dad had what would turn out to be the first of 3 heart attacks. And as I was making the trip home from San Angelo, where I was in college, to El Paso, where my family was, had a conversation with the minister of our home church at the time about what I was going to do. And I graduated. A bachelor's degree in psychology is not all that marketable, so I knew I'd be looking at a master's, and what did I want to do after that? And by the time we made that drive across West Texas in the middle of the night, realized that what I really wanted to do was go into ministry, which was not something that had ever occurred to me as a professional option.
Seriously?
It really hadn't. I sort of thought about counseling, and then thought about chaplaincy, particularly in like children's hospital setting kind of things. But all of the things that I did growing up, whether it was in leadership or participation, all of the opportunities that I had where I met the people who meant the most to me and the friendships that had lasted the longest, and the stuff where I felt like I was doing something that made any kind of difference about anything, all revolved around the church. So in the course of that conversation, we sort of realized, okay, maybe ministry is what this looks like. So it wasn't a, lightning bolt fall from a horse kind of call to ministry, voice from the clouds, but it was sort of this gradual thing of realizing I've always been being prepared for this.
Oh, wow.
Made a visit to Bright Divinity School at TCU, enrolled, was accepted, spent my 4 years there, and got my master's degree, and here we are 25 years later.
Here we are.
On Pastoral.
Yeah, this clearly is the culmination.
The absolute pinnacle. This is what it's all been leading to.
Fred, we're in auspicious company. Like, Courtney knows everybody. It's kind of amazing. One of Courtney's big gifts is, you are a networker of people. Like, people. That's your whole bag. Like, you're the connections pastor, for crying out loud.
I am, yeah. When I introduce my people to each other, or when one of my people realizes I know one of their people, they're like, "How did you do that?" I say, "It's an occupational hazard," but it's also a real blessing and a real gift. I've had some great opportunities to meet people all over the place, and the fact that I get to then introduce them to each other is just a super bonus.
Yeah, friends, several of the people that we've had on Pastor Pals, Adam Soltani, Abby Jacobson, Lori Walkie. These are all people that I know in large part because of Courtney, because Courtney knows everybody.
Only the good people, only the best people.
Hey, I like to tell people, you know what? Jesus ate with sinners, and now he eats with you. So there we go.
I love it. It's great. It's great.
What is right now, like, what, as you look back over your time in ministry, like, what has been the most satisfying thing about your ministry? Clearly the people, yeah, we get that, fine. What's, other than that, like, what is it about being a pastor that you just gets you up in the morning? Like, what do you look forward to? Like, for me, it's preaching. That's the
Sure.
thing. I like to preach.
Yeah. I was just having this conversation with a friend the other day, and one of the things that, even in the middle of stuff that's really hard and awful and difficult, the thing that will always keep me coming back is that I am invited into the most vulnerable spaces in people's lives.
Yeah.
Whether it's a faith question that they're asking, or a social issue that they're wrestling with from a faith perspective, or speaking words at a graveside in memorial of someone's life, holding a child within a day of their birth and praying a blessing over them while they're still like bright red and shiny and in the hospital. Those really, really vulnerable moments. And when you get a phone call or a text message or an email, or somebody catches you in the hallway after worship and says, "Can I talk to you for a minute?" Or, "Do you have time for me to come by?" Or, "Can we have lunch?" Or, "I want to send you something." That's a level of trust and connection and commitment that you just don't get in other gigs. I don't think. Maybe people do, and if they do, I hope so. I wish everybody could feel as connected and
maybe teachers, right? Maybe teachers.
Oh, sure.
I think those are the folks that are the closest.
Yes, don't we sing the praises of our teachers?
Yeah.
And I think that there are certainly professions where there are pieces of that, but I think that ministry gives you sort of the whole cradle to grave, really, literally, perspective of being in life, in life circumstances with somebody, and that's just a real joy.
Yeah, our pastor of congregational care, Glenn, and I were talking about that today. It's the beauty and the heartbreak of what we do. Like, we get led into these moments, and it's beautiful. That's also painful sometimes to bear that burden with people, sometimes for people.
Right.
It's interesting that you mentioned, well, not interesting. It totally works, because we're we're professional storytellers, so of course I'm going to make a segue. That you talk about, moving into these moments with people and helping them be in there. 2 days ago on Trinity Sunday, we spent some time with Nicodemus. We spent time in John 3, and poor Nicodemus, who, the way I was exegeting the text was that Nicodemus was a man who really likes control, and his whole world was out of control. And so he's coming to this dude saying, listen, and poor Jesus just keeps messing with him with all of these, you've been there, either on one side or the other. Nicodemus just wants the answer, and Jesus is like, the wind's gonna blow where it wants to. Like, you're a jerk, Jesus, shut up. When you think about that text, right? Because oftentimes we think about the born again stuff or the for God so loved the world stuff, but I was really struck with Jesus being in this moment with a leader, right? Somebody who, and Jesus even says at one point, "You're a teacher, like you should know this stuff." You're in relationship with a lot of, you and I get to be in relationship with some people who are doing some amazing work in the world. Yeah. Like what an honor to be able to do that. What do you think stories like Jesus and Nicodemus tell us? Like, what would you want congregation members to know about what it means to be a pastor because of those moments?
I was laughing as you were talking about how Jesus always answers these really personal, intense, significant questions with like, oh, whatever, you'll figure it out. God will tell you.
Jesus and John is such a joke.
Not helpful. My friend Jennifer would say, well, if I was the Messiah, that parables would not be helpful to me. But the thing that I think about the Nicodemus story that's so significant is that Nicodemus comes to him sort of side door, right? I mean, like at night, like, I got a question, which is most of the time how we find ourselves approaching Jesus, is like, I have a question, I'm not quite sure what to do about this. And so as a pastor, the thing that I always want to remind people is that that's how life works. That's how the majority of life works. In the Christian calendar, we have the big seasons, right? You have your blue and purple seasons, you have your white seasons, you have your brief red seasons where the big stuff happens. Lent, Advent, Christmas, Epiphany, Pentecost, all the big stuff. But most of the calendar is green. It's ordinary time. This is where just all the usual stuff happens.
Right.
And so it's it's Pride Month, right? So it's my kid is queer and I don't know how to deal with our family who doesn't know how to deal with that.
Right.
Or my mom is sick and I don't know how to tell her that it's going to be okay because I don't think it's actually going to be okay.
Right.
Or my husband has cheated on me and I don't know how to tell that to our kids. Or I've got a job that I hate and I can't figure out how to get out of it and find something better, so I'm miserable all the time. So those are the ordinary things, but they all feel really big. They all feel like they're really big things. And just because other people are also dealing with really big things doesn't mean that your thing is any smaller, right? It's not pie. We don't have to divide it up evenly.
Right.
So all of the stuff that we feel, whether it's the really huge stuff or the little bitty stuff, it's all happening in that green part of the calendar. It's all happening in that ordinary time. And that's when we go to Jesus. And sometimes it's in the middle of the night when we're laying there thinking, okay, Jesus, I have a question. What do I do about this?
Right.
And that's where it happens the most.
At
least it does for me. I mean, maybe some of y'all are figuring yours out much faster and in the light of day, but mine is usually in the middle of the night, like, oh, now what?
What does it feel like to be the only unaware person on the planet? No, that's totally right. Because, I mean, a lot of times, like, we side glance at those things because they're just, every day in morning prayer, we get to, after we do our prayers of thanksgiving and intercession, we've got this moment of silence. And I invite us to say, now we're going to enter into a moment of silence. And we're going to offer God the prayers of our hearts, those things that we don't know how to name or don't even dare to name. Because those are real, right?
Yeah, that's the language that I often use when I do pastoral prayers as well, is that we're bringing you the prayers that we speak and the prayers that we don't know how to speak and the prayers we don't even know exist yet.
Oh, man.
That's what we bring. And those are the Nicodemus moments. Those are the in the dark with a whisper, because we don't know where else to go kind of things. And they happen.
Man, why does it have to take so long for us to realize those things? I was sharing with somebody took me to lunch after worship on Sunday, and I was sharing about how I was like well into my adulthood when I started to realize my physiological response to anxiety. Why did it take me that long to realize that stuff?
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
You'd think for all the education that so many of us have, we'd be a little smarter. And yet.
And yet, here we are, Lord. Use us.
Right. Use us. Imperfect, broken vessels that we are.
Right. Michael Richter notes, I love the way Paul talks about those prayers in Romans with sighs too deep for words. Yes. Exactly. That's exactly right, Michael. That's exactly right.
One of my brain hi, Michael.
Yeah, I feel like I'm praying a lot of those prayers these days.
So many. And I just preached at Pentecost. And one of the things that I talk about a lot when I talk about the Holy Spirit is that the words for inspire and respiration are the same. it's being filled with the Spirit and then releasing the Spirit. It's inspiring and respiring, and that's what we're doing. And those constant reminders that even when we don't know what to pray for, just sort of sitting there and breathing for a second and taking the Spirit in and letting the Spirit out can be its own prayer. And the Spirit will sort out what the prayer is.
Right. That's one of the things I'm toying with is, of course, because every preacher wants to do this, is preach a sermon series through the fruit of the Spirit, right? And one thing I like to say often is, like, I can't put together a 5-point plan to be more loving, but I can connect myself with God in order to, respire. Am I using that right? Am I using that right? Sure. Yeah. This is one thing Courtney does for me. She's like, yeah, go ahead. You're cute. Go ahead.
We'll get there.
What are practices that you've got? Like poor Nicodemus, that's the thing that when I look at him, I'm like, oh, that dude needs to meditate. That dude needs to meditate.
It would work for you.
Yeah. Yoga's the answer for everything. Geraldine and I have this joke that yoga's the answer for everything.
And for some people, it's true.
Yeah. What are the practices that you partake in that help you to do that centering, chill, recognize, breathe in, breathe out kind of stuff?
Right. Well, most people who know me would say that I breathe out a lot because I talk a lot. So I'm doing a lot of the respiring.
Listen, some of us are just cursed with.
I'm just saying what everybody's thinking.
Plus, everybody needs to know what we think, Courtney.
But one of the things that I always want to say before I try to name things like this is that this is what I am finding meaningful for me right now.
Right.
So I'm not saying this is like everybody's magic formula and, please take this as a 1-for-1, do this immediately.
You're saying I don't have to do yoga because yoga may not work for me, Geraldine?
Works for you, it works for you.
I'm going to be in so much trouble when I walk out of this bedroom door.
Just stay there.
Back to you, Courtney. What works for you?
But sometimes it is just vegging out on anything, just sitting in a chair, laying on the floor, getting under the covers, whatever it is, and just being still, because there's so much noise and movement and sound and constancy. And even if you're in an office setting where you're working in your space, there are other people also working in their spaces. And when everybody's moving back and forth and there's just the sound of doors opening and phones ringing and all that kind of stuff, it's just hard to kind of close that out. So even if there's just a minute to sit down and be quiet at the end of the day or at the start of the day to sort of get you ready for it. I think it's good to take advantage of those things. I don't do it on any sort of prescribed schedule or length of time, but just like when I feel myself losing focus and just feeling like everything's spinning, I'm like, okay, let's just sit still for a second. And I will literally just sit in the chair, my feet on the floor, put my hands on my legs and just sit there for a second. My watch, since I got one of these fitness watches to keep track of my walking and reminding me to get out of my chair and reminding me to drink water and all those things, it also has a little breathe button and it'll kind of click beats for you to breathe in and breathe out. And sometimes I will hit it accidentally. Like if I'm pressing my hand down to like pick something up, it'll push the button by mistake. And so I'll feel it vibrate against my wrist. And so I'll just go ahead and do it, even if I was in the midst of something else. So I sort of take those accidental reminders, go for a walk, call somebody, text a friend, read something nonsensical, scroll through Instagram and like all the pictures of your friends' kids going to prom and graduating from high school and, you know, stupid memes and whatever. But I've also started a couple of years ago, I started a prayer practice just sort of as it would occur to me during the day, where I would light a candle on my desk and I would open a notebook and I would take a picture of it and I would invite people on my social media to share prayer concerns that they had. And people did publicly or they would share it privately, but the act of actually writing someone's name down on a page and what they've prayed for or what they're asking me to pray for, there's something about the tactile pen to paper kind of thing. I mean, I still keep a paper calendar for the same reason. You know, I need to feel that connection, and it helps it sink more into my head and into my memory and into my heart when I write down someone's name in prayer. So I actually got a big notebook for this year and just write people's names down. Also having a trusted group of friends that you can just spill all of your guts with all of the unsavory things and all of the cuss words and all of the ranting and raving and all of the things that you wouldn't say in front of your mom and all of that stuff. Just having a place to do that, but also being trusted to be part of that group for somebody. All of those things sort of help reset me. Sometimes I manage all of those within a week. Sometimes I only get one of them in. But having sort of a collection to draw from, I found really helpful.
Courtney and I are part of the same pastors group. I assume that's who you're referring to.
Sorry.
We've got a Facebook thread and we're just going constantly, the seven of us. It's kind of fun. So Westies, you'll get to meet Courtney in August when she is present at my installation in August. Not last week, because we had to postpone last week, but the week before we had our friend Gordon Edwards on, and Gordon has done some work, at least in the Presbyterian Church, around the centennial of the Tulsa massacre that was officially yesterday and into today. You're a pastor in Tulsa. What has been the conversation with your congregation members been like leading up to this and over the weekend and throughout the last couple of days?
Gosh, there has been so much going on for an event that we frequently say has been forgotten and unknown for so long. I think that you can't not have heard about it this year.
Seriously.
It has been everywhere. And I'm really, really grateful for that in a couple of ways. Members of our congregation, including the superintendent of Tulsa Public Schools, have been really active in creating curriculum that's now used in our school districts. Nice. That includes the Tulsa Race Massacre in ways that it was just flat, never mentioned. People who grew up in the city and in the state, you know, it wasn't until just a few years ago that it was even included as part of the history books. I
didn't know about it until my sister was doing a degree in criminal justice 4 or 5 years ago. That's the first time I'd ever heard of it. Yeah. And I was born in Tulsa.
Right, exactly. So, but our Christian and our interfaith, our multi-faith communities have been really involved, particularly this year, moving toward the centennial, to have conversations between groups of people and within groups to say, what's been the long-term scar on our city and how do we go about healing that? Does that look like education? Yes. Does that look like reparations? Yes. Does that look like social justice and policy change? Yes. Okay, so if it looks like all those things, who's going to do which part? And so what we're really encouraging people to do is find their piece that they connect to. We don't all have to do all the things, but we should all be doing some of the things. And so our churches are really making every effort to be honest about our history, churches that were here 100 years ago, churches that were very close to the Greenwood district, white churches particularly, who were involved in significant ways and in what happened, have been really intentional about saying, this is part of our history and not in the good way. And so we need to say that, and we need to do something about that. And they're really making that commitment. Churches like Harvard Avenue, that were not around 100 years ago, have said, okay, how can we be part of the work that's being done now and that needs to be done into the future? And that looks like different things for everybody. There's a huge education push with the new Greenwood Rising Museum and Education Center. There's a huge connection to the Greenwood Cultural Center, which has done tremendous work for many years. The John Hope Franklin Reconciliation Center. Reconciliation Park is one of my favorite spots in the city. And I always say, if you haven't been, you need to go. And if you haven't been lately, you need to go again. And then things like the movement for reparations. And what does that look like for survivors, for descendants, and for the rebuilding of the Greenwood community? 35 blocks, the historic district. I mean, it's a ton.
That is a lot.
People and space and just decimation. And so what does it look like to even think about being part of bringing that back and listening to the people who are closest to the pain, because they're also closest to the solution?
Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to hear from you is, what are the hopeful stories that you've heard of what people have done? And I mean, the beautiful things, and sometimes pain, right? Pain is a part of that beauty. What are some, like when you think about congregations, fellow congregations, or even just in the community, when you think about, oh, this is something that happened that I have to remember. What do you think about? What's something that's coming to mind?
One of the things that's been really wonderful in the midst of all this pain is just that people are saying, I didn't know about that, and now I know about that, and I need to do something. Even if it's just, I need to learn more about it, but also I want to connect to the people who are involved. So I want to shop on Greenwood. I want to go to businesses and stores that are owned by Black merchants, and I want to be part of rebuilding their community by bringing my dollars to the community, and helping nest a new community there. And it's been rebuilding in stages for years, but I think the impetus right now just shines a really bright light on it. And so the Black Wall Street Times and art installations at all of our fine art and contemporary art and local galleries have really focused on the Black community and the Black Tulsa community, and what does it look like to be an artist in this day and age, and what do they have to say to us, and what can we learn? How can we, like I said, listen to the people who are closest, not coming in and saying, hey, we're going to be white people throwing money at something, but we're going to come in and say, we want to listen for what our ancestors were part of, involving your ancestors, and how can we as new generations do something new together, and listening first and repeatedly before we speak and act is something that we're really encouraging. And there are, like I said, there are lots of ways that people are making that happen, through organizations, through congregations, through community gatherings. There have just been a ton of events over the weekend, but there are also a lot more to come throughout the rest of the month. There are a lot of things still happening in the Tulsa area. And I'm just glad that people are even paying attention. That's, I think, just a huge first step.
Right. I mean, we forget that a lot of the times. You really do have to crawl before you walk. And sometimes getting people to just see something, getting their eyes open. And that sounds really patronizing and paternalistic. Walking with people as their eyes are being opened, hopefully introducing something to them.
Right. We had a church member a year ago after George Floyd was killed. And after there was so much visceral, visible pain in Black communities, one of our dear saints of the church who said, I want to do something to help the community and to let them know that there are people who care. Is there something that we can do? And we talked about one of the feeding ministries at one of the churches in North Tulsa. And so she said, I'm going to make a contribution. Can I give it to our church? Can I give it to the church to pass along to make sure that it gets to the right place? And do you think that we might invite other people in the church to contribute too? And I said, yeah, definitely. So we did sort of a little thing for a couple of weeks in the newsletter and let people know that this was going on and that we had this seed gift and that we invited people to give to it. Our outreach team took some designated funds and contributed toward it. And her $500 check turned into $10,000.
Oh, wow. With just a couple of weeks of talking about it?
In just a couple of weeks of talking about it. And so taking advantage of community impetus and media coverage to say, maybe there's something I should be paying attention to, works. You know?
Right.
So, and that, like I said, that can't be the only thing that we do, but it's a place where this person started and other people chose to join her. And then others since then have said, you know, how can we do more and where can we learn more and what else can we be part of? And so seeing pictures on social media or hearing stories from people at worship about, oh, hey, we went to this event or we saw this display or we heard this person speak or we had this conversation or we shopped at this store or we subscribed to the Black Wall Street Times or, you know, whatever it is that people are saying, you know, we really want to be connected to the heart of the community and not just, you know, sort of hovering around it and taking pictures of ourselves doing nice things.
Right.
You know, we really want to be part of the work of the city is really heartening to me. And yes, it is far later than it should have been, but we're doing the work.
Right.
We're doing the work we can.
I mean, given the different emphases that like you and I each have on this work called Pastor, the thing that really is the same is we're both trying to encourage people into this metanoia, this changing the mind, right?
Right.
I mean, I've long been convinced that one of the main things that a church can do is just help people to see the world differently. Like that's really all that we can do. Sometimes that's by connecting people with other people and helping them be in relationship and hear the stories. Sometimes that's in worship. Sometimes that's hearing a sermon. Mm-hmm. But it's just, I mean, Paul talks about it all the time. Jesus talks about it. I mean, that was his whole bag, right? Hey, y'all, the kingdom of heaven is right here. Like, get your head straight.
Right. And every time he would say the kingdom of heaven is like something, it was like a thing that they knew.
Right.
The kingdom of heaven is like this thing that you recognize.
Yes.
So, yeah. And yes. So back to the first question, you know, you asked me about what keeps you doing this and what connects you to this. It's that moment when that light bulb comes on for somebody. And it's to say, oh, I have value in the work of the world. And there's a thing that I can do. And it may be a little thing, but I can do my part. And to see somebody realize that and then go for it is the greatest. It's the best.
Oh, that at least through the first 6 months here at Westminster, that's kind of been the drum I've been trying to bang of, listen, whatever you're doing, God has called you to that. Like, it's not this calling is not this highfalutin holy thing, but it is. And what you're doing, you were talking about most of the stuff of life happens in ordinary time. Like our callings are ordinary. They're extraordinary, but are they ordinary? They're just normal things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Courtney dear, it's been fun. I'm glad we only live an hour and a half away from one another. I know. Courtney is one of the friends that I have where I don't really have to wait like months and months and months to go see her because I could just see her because she only lives an hour and a half away. Dear friend, it is so good to talk to you always.
Thanks for the invitation. This was fun.
I'm so glad you could do it. I'm so glad you could do it. all right, friends, we're going to take a few weeks off. I'm going on vacation for 3 weeks.
Good for you.
Yeah, no Pastor Pals for at least 3 weeks. We'll hope to get back to it. I think that we're probably we'll see what the summer holds. I know, you know, it's summer recess. That's what we're calling it around here, summer recess. So we may do that. All right, friends. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you on Sunday. Courtney dear, love you dearly.
Love you. Thanks.
Thanks, friend. Bye-bye. Peace out.